This is Dan Seifert with mobileburn.com, and this is a look at the HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE for Verizon Wireless. The HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE is the latest member of Verizon Wireless's Incredible family of smartphones. The first Incredible with support for 4G LTE and Android 4.0 ice cream sandwich out of the box. Its appearance definitely has the Incredible DNA, but this latest version looks more like a smaller edition of last year's HTC Resound than it does the original DROID Incredible or DROID Incredible 2. The front of the phone features a 4-inch QHD display with 540 by 960 pixels of resolution. Though it is not as high-res as some of the other screens on the market now, the resolution is plenty sharp enough for the smaller size of this display. The screen itself is a Super LCD unit, and it has accurate colors, but it could definitely benefit from better viewing angles, as colors tend to wash out and contrast levels drop significantly when you hold the phone at slight angles. When you compare it side by side with the excellent Super LCD 2 displays on other HTC smartphones, it's really not quite up to par. Below the screen you find capacitive buttons for back, home, and multitasking. And then over at the top above the screen you find the VGA resolution front-facing camera, light sensors, and LED notification light. The earpiece features a stylish red grille that is pretty signature to the Incredible line of smartphones. The Incredible 4G LTE is not the thinnest phone on today's market, as it measures 11.7 millimeters thick. The rounded sides do make it easier to hold, and it's fairly comfortable to use despite its girth. Along the right side of the phone you find the volume rocker, while the left is only home to a micro USB charging and syncing port. The bottom houses a microphone, and the top sports a red power sleep unlock key, 3.5mm headphone jack, and a secondary noise-canceling microphone. Around back we can see the definite resemblance to the Resound, as the Incredible 4G LTE has this very similar ribbed soft-touch back cover. This ribbing helps aid in handling the device, and it provides the exact opposite feeling that you get from the glossy plastics used by Samsung, and it really feels nice when you're holding it and helps you keep a grip on it. Up top you'll find the 8-megapixel camera with LED flash and the external speaker, and then the bottom of the back features a Beats Audio logo. As with the original Incredible and Incredible 2, the back cover of the Incredible 4G LTE is removable, providing access to the battery, micro SIM card slot, and micro SD card slot. The battery itself is a 1700 mAh unit that Verizon says is good for about 9.5 hours of talk time or almost 19 days of standby. During my review, I was able to get about 14 to 15 hours of use out of the Incredible 4G LTE before it quit, which is right about average for most smartphones today. All in all, despite its lower hardware specs than the smartphones, the Incredible 4G's LTE's smaller footprint might be its most attractive assets. The smaller screen size makes it easier to handle with one hand, and as you can see here, it's much smaller than, say, Samsung's Galaxy S3, which has a 4.8-inch display. Of course, the trade-off there is that there's a smaller screen and less screen real estate to play around with. Under the hood, the Incredible 4G LTE is powered by a slightly slower 1.2 GHz version of Qualcomm's Snapdragon S4 dual-core processor, and it's paired with 1 GB of RAM. The slower processor doesn't let the Incredible hit the same benchmarks that we've seen on phones with a 1.5 GHz version of the chip, but in everyday use I really didn't see any slowdowns or sluggish performance. The interface of the phone runs smoothly and without hesitation, and apps open pretty quickly. The Incredible 4G LTE can also hold its own with 3D gaming, but you might find that the smaller display can make some more of the games more difficult to play than if you had a larger screen. The Incredible 4G LTE has support for Verizon's LTE network, and it performs on par with other LTE devices that the carrier offers. I found that in areas with good LTE coverage, I was able to hit over 15 megabit download speeds and over 10 megabit upload speeds on a fairly regular basis. The Incredible 4G LTE comes with Android 4.0.3 ice cream sandwich and HTC's latest Sense 4.0 interface on board. Sense 4.0 on the Incredible is the same that we've seen on the HTC One X, One S, and Evo 4G LTE that are offered by other carriers, and it's much better than earlier versions of Sense. Sense 4 features toned-down animations that are much more informative than they are intrusive, and there's a lot of things that make it a little bit easier to use the phone than older Sense versions. The home screen still has 7 panels, and the app tray is side-scrolling with tabs to access frequently used apps, downloaded apps, or Verizon's own suite of pre-installed apps. The app tray also has quick access to search and the Google Play Store. But I'm not a huge fan of everything that's in Sense 4. I really dislike how it handles the on-screen menu button that shows up in legacy apps, as it takes up a good chunk of the screen to do primarily one function. And I find that HTC's multitasking menu is pretty and it looks nice, but it can be slower to use than the standard vertical scrolling menu that you see in stock Android 4.0. The web browser on the Incredible 4G LTE is pretty fast and performs well. It supports Adobe Flash Player, but you have to download the plugin from the Google Play Store for it to work. The browser features multiple tabs and smooth performance when you're panning and zooming, but the lower resolution and the smaller size of the display does mean that you do have to zoom in a bit more to read text on web pages than is necessary with other devices on the market. Alternatively, since the Incredible 4G LTE runs Android 4.0, you can choose to use the excellent Google Chrome for Android browser that's available from the Google Play Store, just as long as you don't mind giving up Adobe Flash support, of course. Unfortunately, the Incredible 4G LTE comes with a lot of preloaded apps from Verizon. Some of the apps aren't even really apps, such as the Slingbox app, which just launches a video commercial for the service and then prompts you to sign up for a monthly Slingbox plan. Fortunately, thanks to Android 4.0, it is possible to disable these carrier apps so you don't see them, but it can be a pretty tedious process to do that with all of them, and it's not possible to remove them entirely from the phone, unfortunately. HTC has outfitted the Incredible 4G LTE with an 8 megapixel autofocus camera that can shoot 1080p video. The Incredible doesn't have the image sense processing chip that you find on the One series of smartphones, and HTC says that because of this, certain imaging processing features like HDR or panoramic stitch can take longer on the Incredible than they do on the One X or the One S. But the camera interface is virtually the same as any other Sense 4 phone, and it gives you quick access to filters, settings, zoom, and some other functions. I'm really a big fan of this camera interface. I think it's one of the best on any Android device available on the market right now, and it makes it easy to quickly change settings while you're shooting. The Incredible 4G LTE features tap to autofocus and quick shot-to-shot times, and the images captured by it are okay, if not quite up to the best in class. Outdoors and good lighting, the Incredible 4G LTE does very well, but I found that in poor lighting, indoors and things like that, it can struggle compared to the competition that's available. As I mentioned earlier, video can be captured at up to 1080p HD resolution, and there is a very handy dedicated video button accessible in all of the shooting modes of the camera. Video recorded is pretty decent, and again, not quite as good as what's available from other devices. But there is the ability to shoot full resolution still images while recording, which is always a nice feature to have. Summing up here, the HTC Incredible 4G LTE does a pretty good job of carrying on the Incredible name, as it provides solid performance, decent battery life, and fast network speeds. But unfortunately today, competition is much stiffer than it was when the original Incredible came out over 2 years ago, and the Incredible 4G LTE is easily overshadowed by HTC's own One line and then other devices that are in Verizon's smartphone lineup. People that really like a smaller device should definitely jump on the Incredible 4G LTE. It's the only 4-inch Android smartphone that has a modern dual-core processor and a modern operating system that you can get from Verizon. But for just a little bit more money, you can get the Samsung Galaxy S3 soon, in a couple days, which offers faster performance, much nicer and larger display, and a better camera. Right now, you can get the HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE from Verizon Wireless for about $149.99 on contract. For more on the HTC DROID Incredible 4G LTE, be sure to check out our full written review at mobileburn.com. This is Dan Seifert from mobileburn.com. Thanks for watching.